Hey guys, I've been having so much fun playing with the Predator 224 on my Megamoto 212 mini bike, I decided to take it to the next level. What we have here is a Duromax 440cc, 18 horsepower. This is what we call in the light duty power sports a big block, whereas the 212 is a small block. 18 horsepower as opposed to 6.5, and this particular one has electric start. These are a good, reliable engine, quite a bit bigger than the Predator 212 or 224. And there's a fair amount of aftermarket support for them. One of the problems with this engine is in its bone stock configuration, there's a crankshaft balance shaft in here. The crankshaft is not a balanced crank, so it has a separate balance shaft. And in order to make any kind of upgrades, like a billet connecting rod, removing the governor, that sort of thing, you pretty well have to take the balance shaft out of it. So they're not going to run as smooth unless you pull the crankshaft out and send it someplace to get it balanced, which is probably going to cost a few $100s. I don't want to go into the project that I have in mind for this quite yet. Got to get a few more bits and pieces sorted out before we get into that. But I figured this is a good opportunity to go over the motor, take a look at it, see if there's anything unusual that we can spot. Similar to the other small engines in this sort of category, is a governed engine. It's designed to run at a maximum speed of, I'd have to look at the manual, but I'm going to guess 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. We've got a throttle stop screw, so you can only open the throttle so much. This throttle arm is quite stiff, adjusted with this bolt here. Interesting, the spark plug boot has a metal shield over it, and as I mentioned, this has the electric start here, and these keys are kind of generic, nothing special about them. If you have, probably even start this with a screwdriver, so don't rely on these ignition switches for security purposes. We have a circuit breaker, and this will have a charge circuit in it and be able to charge a battery. Here we have the starter. We have start solenoid and oil fill. There's another one over on the other side, and of course these are shipped without any oil in them, so I need to make sure that we get that looked after. And I'll probably also order in one of those magnetic dipsticks so that we pick up any metal filings that end up in the bottom of the crankshaft. Under here is the oil shutoff tied into the ignition, and that is not really a low oil pressure because these aren't a pressurized oil system, but it's like a kind of a float ball type thing. If the motor gets tilted over, it gets shut off so that it doesn't puke its guts out all over the place. I don't know how well it shows up in the picture, but down in here we've got reinforcing ribbing on the block, similar to what we see on the Duromax engine. The Predator 224 that I'm using in the mini bike has reinforced ribs on the block as well. Here we can see we've got the 2 oil access ports in case the installation blocks this one, you still have this one to get at, etc. We've got our exhaust, and kind of like the Predator, would be blowing straight out onto the back fender of a mini bike. I've heard of people using these 420s, 440s in mini bike applications, but I don't think this would fit in the Megamoto frame, even with the fuel tank and exhaust taken off and stripped down to a aftermarket carburetor. We've got a 1-inch shaft. I've got the key taped on here with a piece of duct tape. You can see, similar to the 224, we've got kind of a reinforced cooling fins on the top side of the cylinder. This is the shaft coming up off the governor. The governor gear rides on this pin here. Several different mounting locations for accessories. I've got a heavy-duty CV clutch to go on this. I don't believe this is a Hemi head, but let's pull that valve cover off and take a look. Nice resealable O-ring on the valve cover. And this is the crankcase vent that blows into the back of the airbox. Yeah, these are parallel, or mostly parallel. So these are a non-Hemi style head So this is a Rado Ruying carburetor, which is essentially the same style of carburetor that is on the, or the same brand of carburetor that's on the Predator 212. This looks to be a slightly larger carburetor than what is on the 212, but of course this is more than twice the size. And you'll notice it also has quite a bit larger fuel tank. Being that it's more than twice the size, it's going to burn probably twice as much gas. Anyways, this is a quick little look at this engine. Figured you might be interested. I didn't really want to start this motor up because I don't plan on using it anytime in the next couple of months. But what kind of video would this be without at least trying? So we're going to put some good stuff in it. And one of the reasons to use the Shell Rotella with this style of engine is it has a high amount of zinc in it added, and that helps with flat tappet cams, and these engines most definitely have flat tappet cam. Greg from Redbeard's Garage chooses to use a Amsoil synthetic, but he adds zinc to his oil, and if we use this stuff, we don't have to. Proper oil level is critical in these small engines because they do not have a pressurized oil system. All they have is a splash oil, which is a little dipper on the connecting rod that goes down into the oil as the engine turns, and it sprays oil all over the inside of the engine. On smaller engines like this, splash oil is fairly adequate, although if you're going to be modifying these, beefing them up at all, a billet connecting rod that has a oil passage drilled from the dipper up to the insert style bearing is a good idea. That way your crankshaft gets adequate lubrication. We'll put the dipstick in and we'll see how much oil we've got. We're up to about there on the dipstick. I'd like to get a little more in there. Engines like this do tend to make a little bit of metal when you first fire them up and run them. It's always a good idea to run them 5 hours or so, and then you make sure you do an oil change and ideally get all of the oil out of it. Another way of doing it, of course, is to take the thing apart and do some upgrades, in which case you have the opportunity to scrape out all of the sludge that's built up in the bottom of the crankcase while you've got it apart. Okay, we are now up to about there. I think that's probably good. Oil level wise, I don't have any gas in it yet. We do have tiny tack or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully we can see how many RPM we're turning. Wrap this around the spark plug lead. This little tachometer is a little vague on how it's set up. It's not quite intuitive. Hit the mode. And it's 1P, 1R, and that's not what we need. We need it to be 1P, 2R. Press the set, 1P, 2R. And I guess we just let it sit here and it'll time out and lock in. Because if I press either of these buttons, it switches modes. The little box shows hours right now, 00, because it hasn't run any. And as soon as it detects pulses for more than 1 second, it will automatically switch over to RPM. I got enough gas in it to fire it up. I have it strapped down to this table. What I don't have is a battery to run the electric start. Let's give it a try and see what happens. Oh, that doesn't feel too bad. Didn't start on the first pull like the Predator 224 though. Choke is on, fuel is on, ignition is on. We'll give it another couple of tugs. Something tells me that tack's not reading right. That's a little more believable. There we go. And the reason it quit was that I turned off the gas. So that the carburetor float bowl should be completely drained. There is a little bit of fuel in the bottom of the tank, but not too much. And we'll have to get this thing fired up again in the not too distant future, I guess, to play with it some more. Anyways, that's all I wanted to get done for this video. Thanks a lot for stopping by. If you got this far, can you throw me one of those thumb up things? Give me a like, and maybe if you haven't already done so, consider subscribing to Doug's Messy Garage. We're playing with small engines, we're playing with CNC, we're welding metal, all sorts of little projects we got on the go, and there's always something new going on. So if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next mess.